My name's John Libby, and it's good to see old and potentially new friends on the call. And it's a particular great pleasure and privilege to welcome Takana. And it's really great that he's joined us to share. And in a moment, we'll be having a conversation together. But welcome to all guests and friends. Takana, a really special welcome to you. Tell us where you're speaking from. Make us all jealous.
Good morning, John, and good morning, dear friends. I'm joining you from Fiji Islands, so the capital of Fiji, Suva, and I'm joining you from the future, I guess.
That's right.
I'm already tomorrow, and it's 6 a.m. here. It's the cool part of the year for us. Temperatures around 21, 22 degrees Celsius. And it stays around the 20s throughout the day. So it's our winter, if you know what I mean.
Well, yes, but no. Yes, we don't know what years, but yeah. Well, it's good to see. How long have you been there? Have you been
born and raised here? Hardly left the country except for Langham works. When we need to meet, because Langham in the South Pacific is part of Asia, so usually we'd go to Bangkok or some of these places, yeah.
And obviously, at some point, you met Jesus Christ in some way, somehow. Share with us your testimony as to what it was that sparked the seed of faith.
So I was born into a very, very proud, very rich Catholic family. So my family accepted Catholicism into our village. So that's my background. And then as I grew to about 12 years old, my parents left and joined this charismatic church. But I didn't feel like I belonged there. It wasn't until I left home for uni when I was about 19. That's when I started sort of this searching, and I had questions about God. I came across a Gideon New Testament that has the gospel explained at the back. So that's kind of when the light came on for me. And ever since, I've just wanted to know more about God and His Word, and I regretted the, say, 18 years of not knowing what I've discovered at about 19. Yeah.
I'm curious, what did you read at uni then? I meant, what subject did you study? Not. I don't want to read.
It was foundation science, they call them here. So it's the pre-uni units. So preparing for undergraduate. It was through science and what I was bombarded with that caused me to question God and all of that. Basically, whether I believe what I believe or what I've been taught as a kid. Yeah.
And what's your family situation then in Fiji? Are you married? And no?
Yes, I'm married to Olivia, and we have 3 children. The oldest is going to turn 12 in a couple of days on Tuesday next week, and then we have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. Yeah.
Good. I know because you told us a while back on a video that is available that was produced for our Vision Weekend that you're exploring through the charismatic church and but still with the roots of what you've been brought up with, but your parents moving to a different church, that was not without tensions, and I guess many of us on the call might relate to that. Can you share a little bit more of that story?
Yeah, so my parents, my dad eventually became a pastor in a local church as well. And then because of cultural obligation, you're expected to follow what your family does. We're close, we're a communal people. And so everything we do together. And so it was countercultural that I had this experience with God, and I prefer to preach from the Bible, preach faithfully, and all of that. So that's caused a bit of tension between me and my father. He continues in that, although through my work in Langham Preaching, now the theological school that the denomination is a part of have accepted Langham Preaching, and so it's coming into the system as well. That's a praise point for me and an encouragement that despite the challenges, there's these little paths that God is opening up where good Bible teaching and preaching is going into these places. As difficult as my family situation is, yet God is gracious and continues to be faithful in these little ways. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how did you first come into contact with Langham, seeing that it's been so critical and
Yeah, in terms of evangelical Bible stuff in Fiji, we are the minority. And so when I came into the current church that I'm pastoring, there was very little resource, Bible-based resources that's available. And so I'm good friends with people that have this resource, and we share what little we have. So there was a missionary from Australia that was serving in Fiji under CMS. His name is Tony Wright. He's out of the Sydney Anglicans. So he's one of those people that's in my city. And he told me about Langham, tried to explain it to me. It didn't make sense at first. And so he said, just come along to this meeting. And so there was a big meeting with all the pastors from around Suva. And that's the first time I saw Paul Windsor. I was the youngest. Well, I'm still considered a young person in terms of pastoral ministry in Fiji. I was one of the youngest ones. And in Fiji, it's hierarchy. So you're right at the back. I was at the very back, barely made it into the door, and sat there and listened to this presentation about Langham preaching. And then immediately then I thought, man, if we can take a hold of this, it'll be good. But as the presentation went on, there was a question that they asked. Paul Windsor, I think, asked the question, what is the status of biblical preaching in Fiji? And again, Fijian culture, Pacific culture, it's almost a shame-based culture where you don't say the negatives. You always speak positive. And so the senior ministers who were there said, well, we have wonderful speakers, preachers in Fiji. And there are a few of us young people at the back. We were, biting our tongue, waiting, wanting the chance to also speak.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the mic came around, and I basically said, look, if by biblical preaching you mean screaming out at the microphone and guilt tripping people, we do that very well. But if by biblical preaching you mean preaching what the Bible actually says, I think we need help. And there was pin drop silence. Actually, my superiors in our denominations, they gave me the stink look. They said, you're in trouble. So, but that's my beginning with Langham preaching. It started in
well
that
said.
meeting.
Yeah. And you've gone on with Langham, and indeed a key person in our South Pacific ministry. Thank you. I mean, which is a very I think your title is Preaching Co-ordinator for South Pacific. Tell us a little bit. I mean, obviously, you've got the enthusiasm for that role, which is infectious to us here and now. Thank you. But tell us what that role entails and what's the shape and scale of it, and what's your usual week or month like, if you can.
So I'm new in the role. The role was previously held by Stephen Williams, who is a retired Anglican minister as well from Sydney. And it covers we are coordinating the work with the Langham preaching movement in each country where Langham is established. The preaching movement is established within the South Pacific. We're divided into 3 groups. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. There's Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. So Melanesians look like me. They're dark-skinned and frizzy hair. And so most of the Langham work is concentrated in Melanesia. We would love to get into other places, but for now, the countries that have Langham preaching are Aboriginal Australia, Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea. And in these countries, there are some of them have had Langham for 15 years or more. Others, it's about 4 or 5 years. So Fiji is the youngest in the movement. I mean, it's still new, but I think in terms of accessibility, in terms of resources, and that we are a little bit at a better advantage than our neighbors. So in terms of my work, I look after the preaching movement coordinator. So in each country, they've got leaders that lead the local movements. And then they've got preaching clubs that are happening months and weeks at a time. And then every year, I make an effort to visit these places. We've already developed local facilitators in each country. So training is happening in country, which is a big change. In the past, we would have people from outside, so Australia, New Zealand, the UK, they'd come in and run the training and then they'd head back. But slowly we've changed that. We've equipped local facilitators to be able to run these trainings locally as well. So if anything that's coming from outside, it's the books and resources from Langham literature. Apart from that, it's these local coordinators are who I look after and I serve. And we continue to build and do equip ourselves better and better, and we keep going. Yeah, so that's my role.
Okay. I love your expression, had Langham since, as if it's been some sort of infectious disease or whatever that was introduced at a point. But I think that is critical in terms of some of the movements in different countries, is that this is a virus, and we hope that it does go viral in terms of giving people a desire to hear what Scripture says. What's the mood then in Fiji, in your immediate responsibilities? What's the Langham preaching movement like? Again, sort of numbers of groups and people in groups. What's the number of churches?
Yeah.
Is anything like that you can share?
Sure. So I'm no longer the country coordinator for Fiji. We do have a local country coordinator, and basically he's put a stop to the training to get his team organized. The need is great. Like people are asking for the training, but he wants to get his team of facilitators together and get them prepared properly, get local sort of local funding organized so that they can target the cities and towns properly, because he doesn't want he's very strategic about this move. He doesn't want, we know because people are coming to us and asking us now to run the trainings, but we're taking it slowly so that we do it properly. And at the moment there are about 6 or 7 preaching clubs. In terms of training that have happened, we've got about 10 local facilitators who are able to now run the training. But once they have done the administration work, get the movement locally registered and all that, then their reach will be further into the islands. So Fiji alone has about 300 islands. So at the moment, we're still in just the main cities in terms of Langham preaching. We haven't reached out to the wider communities. The other challenge we have is the language. There are 2 main languages in Fiji, apart from English. So we only have the material in English, and everybody in Fiji speaks English. But it would be more helpful for the churches that speak vernacular, either the Itauke, which is indigenous Fijian, or the Hindi, Fiji Hindi. Half of our population are Fiji Indians, Fijians of Indian descent. So they speak Hindi. So that's where the work is at in Fiji.
And are the preaching materials and books available in either of those 2 languages, or is it only in English?
Only in English, and for Fiji's context, that's fine. We go to school in the English language, so that's not a problem for us in Fiji. and for most of Melanesia as well. Papua New Guinea is where we have the issue because they are very, I mean, it's quite more diverse than Fiji. It's like an African country in the South Pacific. So Papua New Guinea will need a lot of translation work, and thankfully the Wycliffe group is very involved with Langham. We partner with them in Papua New Guinea. So hopefully translation work will actually it has started to happen recently.
I'd like to explore two or three areas before we come to close. One is I just know because we've talked about it on our Langham Live before, just the particular heresy, if you like, of prosperity gospel, and if that's still an issue in Fiji, and what thought is that one of the main pressures, or is secularism now?
The two main ones for us in the islands, one is prosperity teaching, and the other one is the liberal theology.
Right.
So for me as a young minister coming up, my options for theological training are a prosperity college or a college that has liberal theology. So you choose those two.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and then the prosperity, as I shared earlier, it's getting like there's a new strategy in Fiji now where it's not the Westerners who are bringing it; it's now Africans who look like Fijians, and so it's more appealing now. But at the same time, people are now speaking up against it. They could see over time they've started to see that even practically thinking what this people are peddling is false and not true, and so it's for me it's encouraging to see that even there are other people who are speaking up against it.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think you're exploring or looking at some new areas or things that
Yes.
you want to start considering a bit more. Share something of that so that our
Yes.
players can be informed and whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's a big area in the South Pacific we haven't even reached in terms of the work with Langham Preaching. Part of it, the next place is the people of Polynesia. So this includes Samoa, Tonga, with the Cook Islands, and also Micronesia, which is the smaller islands further north of us. These are so in a way, Langham Preaching in the South Pacific has just started in terms of the reach, and we're praying and asking, and if you can pray with us for open doors into these places to be able to reach out to them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and I'd imagine just we've talked about the size and scale and whatever of the area that you're involved with, and also the fact that it's dispersed islands and whatever. We talked about languages a bit. We talked about heresies a bit, but what are the main challenges from your perspective that we can stand shoulder to shoulder with you in our prayers?
Yeah, so the distance means money to fly, and it's not cheap across these islands. And the second one is that most of our facilitators and people that work with Langham volunteer their time, and so they are also involved, most of them, in full-time ministry. And so to get a release from the primary ministry to do Langham work is quite tricky. They have to seek permission from their denominations and their ministry, whether it be church or parachurch organizations. And then also in bringing Langham, sometimes people see it as a threat because there's so many ministries. Everybody wants a piece of paradise. They all want a stake on the islands. And so when we introduce Langham to a new place, sometimes we face these oppositions from churches who think, oh, what is this? A new cult, a new, so and everything in the islands is relationships. And so I guess to
Well, if
pray
it's any
for wisdom.
reassurance,
Yes.
any reassurance, which I'm sure it's not, we have similar battles in the UK
You do.
where people
Okay.
get jealous about particular theologies, churches, and movements,
Yes.
and but stick close to Scripture.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
what else? I mean, is family and church, do they give you support in your role, which sounds pretty involved and pretty
Mm.
crazy in terms of
Yes.
getting a weekly or monthly rhythm?
Yes, so again, that's the challenge. Yeah, so I'm pastoring a small Baptist church, and the theological school for this for our Baptist convention has been shut down for many years, and so we don't have new pastors coming in. I'm only in the current role because I've got no replacement. I've trained people through Langham to be able to preach and hold the fort when I travel. But again, very much a prayer point that God will raise leaders to fill in the void in this place. Good, the little church here that I pastor, they're used to an appetite to solid biblical preaching, and so the standard is very high. So when and it's very difficult for them to accept anybody else from outside, and so please pray
Okay.
for our local churches that God will raise more leaders.
Well, right. In a moment, the topics that you've raised and you shared in advance will appear in our chat box. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, there they are for everyone there. Just without rehearsing the whole list, is there any one of them that you particularly just like to share with us and expand a bit and to leave in our minds just as we go to prayer?
I guess I spoke about it a little bit. The moving into the new regions of the South Pacific.
Hmm.
This has been our prayer point, because even within the region there's this we are just finding it difficult to get into some of these places. So we'll need to visit, and we'll need to form networks that will bring us into these places. So yeah, if we could pray
Wow.
for that.
Takana, it's been a real pleasure and privilege just sharing. We'll go into our small groups in a moment, and be assured that you'll be in our thoughts and prayers. And um, the prayer points will be circulated afterwards as well to people that have been here. And this conversation to back up people's prayers will be available on the Langham site as well. And I can assure you, despite what they might look like as faces in front of you, most of the natives are friendly. And not only that, they do actually commit to pray. And so you've shared with quite a cohort of prayer warriors here. I'm sure prayer warriors, that is, not warriors, but maybe the two are the same. Persistent widows and whatever. But thank you very much.